Tonight, the Saskatchewan Union of Nurses says emergency rooms are maxed like never before, and they're asking the province for an immediate solution. Also, testing transit. A downtown group says Regina City councillors need to ride the bus to find out what's working and what's not. Plus, a model from Fishing Lake First Nation is taking the Big Apple by storm.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, March 14th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for watching. If you were in Royal University Hospital in Saskatoon yesterday, you know how packed that emergency room was. And as Pratush Dayal reports, the situation seems dire across emergency rooms in our province.
Until late afternoon Monday, 100 people were waiting for their care here at Royal University Hospital. At least 50 more were in the ER, but there were no beds available. It was until after 2 p.m. that one patient was moved to a ward. This comes from Saskatchewan Union of Nurses, and the organization is concerned.
Mental health patients laying on the floor. There were people lined up in the hallways waiting for care. Huge concern about the fact that there were patients on portable cardiac monitors, but being short-staffed and being so incredibly over capacity, there isn't the ability for a registered nurse to actually be there to watch the cardiac monitor.
Tracy Zambury says it's putting patients' lives in danger. It's also causing burnout for registered nurses, some who are considering quitting. She says RUH often oscillates between 150 to 300% over capacity, but that hospital isn't alone.
The situation is just as dire at St. Paul's Hospital and just as dire at City Hospital. No place in the city, period, of City of Saskatoon to move people around, because we're hitting yet again another crisis point in the city for care for people in Saskatoon.
Zambury says Regina is in the same boat. Regina General Hospital is often between 150 to 200% over capacity, and as many as 7 nurses short on staff. Zambury says they also regularly have 50 to 60 people waiting in the ER. Yorkton ER is also short-staffed and patients are being sent to Regina. But the general was struggling so much, some patients were bypassed to Pasqua Hospital.
Up to 3 hours they're on bypass. They're only accepting, traumas, strokes, pediatric type patients, and the rest of them are having to go to the Pasqua. So you can imagine what's happening at the Pasqua in Regina. It once again is being overrun as well with very, very ill people.
The health minister says he needs to verify this information, but he's not surprised by the concerns. Paul Merriman also says he thinks that the government's solution to hire more healthcare workers is having an impact.
I think it is stabilizing things out there. When we put 160 doctors, 101 specialists, and 59 family physicians in the system in the last 18 months, that is making a difference. 72 nurses that we've just hired, the nurses that we're bringing over from the Philippines, they are all adding into the system. There isn't going to be one quick fix in a month that's going to alleviate all the pressures.
But Zambury says the emergency rooms across Saskatchewan are in dire straits. She says the province needs to find an immediate solution before the whole healthcare system collapses. Pratish Dayal, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The official opposition says the province's speedy rollout of the Canada-Saskatchewan childcare agreement has put childcare providers in a difficult situation. Saskatchewan is launching $10 a day childcare 3 years ahead of schedule, effective April 1st. It applies to parents with children under 6 who attend a licensed centre full-time. The province is eliminating part-time, hourly and weekly childcare spaces as part of the new program. Many childcare providers say that negatively affects parents and part-time daycare workers. They voiced their concerns at the legislature today.
We reached out, we tried to ask for an extension. We tried to get them to listen to us, and no, they still said April 1st, we need to be able to change everything, which shouldn't be allowed. Even to change a contract, we need a month, and that's what we expect from families too. But the government is all of a sudden in 3 weeks, we have to change how we run our facilities. It's not manageable, especially for Mooseman and Carnduff. They have ran their facilities forever on hourly. They don't even know where to start.
The Education Minister says the province will provide funding to licensed daycares to keep them afloat until June 30th. Dustin Duncan says that will give the government a few months to transition to the new plan the right way. Should Saskatchewan MLAs be getting a hefty raise? That's the question being pondered at the legislature. The Legislative Assembly Service is reviewing the annual increase. It would be nearly 7% to coincide with inflation. But as Adam Hunter reports, some say the full amount is not appropriate.
Every year on April 1st, Saskatchewan MLAs concede their pay increase. That's because their salaries are tied to the Consumer Price Index for that year. Some years it goes up modestly, like in 2021. MLAs saw a $600 increase to their annual salary. Last year it rose by 2.6%, or about $2,600. But this year the formula suggests a 6.8% increase, or $7,000 more dollars. That would mean an increase from a salary of $103,000 last year to a potential salary of more than $110,000 this year. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation says MLAs should not receive an extra penny this year.
It's really hard for an MLA, I think, to empathize with the struggles that an average Saskatchewan family is going through right now when they're getting that automatic pay hike, especially with the increases to costs of everything that we've seen lately. So I would say that a complete freeze is the necessary steps right now. We wouldn't want to see the MLAs take anything. They need to do what's right in this scenario, and that is a 0% raise.
The head of the Saskatchewan Federation of Labour says workers will be watching to see what the MLAs decide.
I just think it needs to be fair, but I think that whatever they're accepting for themselves, they need to make sure that they're willing to accept at least that much for the people that are working for this province.
The increase applies to MLAs with additional duties, including Premier Scott Moe. He gets the same base salary as an MLA, but his additional allowance as Premier is $75,000. A 6.8% increase would amount to a $12,000 raise. Moe has said that MLAs would not take what the formula recommends. The opposition says the raise is not on.
We've been very clear that the pay raise, the 6.7%, is not appropriate. So Leg Services is going to take that and look at it, figure out a solution, and then come back to BOIE with a proposal before March 31st.
SAR is on a committee of MLAs who will look at the recommendation from Legislative Services. A government spokesperson says that committee will decide on the recommendation before April 1st. Last year, both BC and Nova Scotia MLAs voted against a pay raise. Adam Hunter, CBC News, Regina.
The return to air travel for Canadians has been marred by frequent flight disruptions and unhappy passengers. Some critics say not enough is being done to keep airlines in check. Today, Ottawa announced a plan to try to smooth some of that turbulence. Sophia Harris reports.
Mohammed Jazayiri and his wife enjoyed most of their vacation in Mexico.
This is on some sunset on the beach.
Until Sunwing canceled their flight back to Vancouver. After waiting nearly a week for another flight, Jazayiri gave up and bought tickets home on a different airline.
It was a nightmare. The support that we got from Sunwing was nothing.
Sunwing, which will soon be taken over by WestJet, hasn't reimbursed Jazayiri for the return flight. So he filed a complaint with the Canadian Transportation Agency. But due to mass flight disruptions both in the summer and in December, the CTA has a backlog of more than 40,000 complaints. Jazayiri was told it could take more than 18 months to review his case.
Justice delayed is justice denied. This whole system's on life support right now. It's not functioning the way it was supposed to.
The backlog is huge.
The federal government is now promising nearly $76 million over 3 years to address the problem.
This will, in real term, mean 200 additional employees who will focus exclusively on complaints. That will take a massive dent out of the backlog.
Ottawa gave the CTA $11 million last year for the same reason. But the backlog only grew. The opposition says Prime Minister Justin Trudeau needs to do more.
He should allow for the complaints that are made against the airlines and the airports to be heard more quickly, and the penalties to be meted out to against those airlines quicker.
The CTA recently doled out fines to several major airlines, the highest to Sunwing for $126,000, for failing to update passengers about flight delays in December. Some experts say the fines need to soar higher.
We have yet to see the regulator really bring out a big stick on anything, I would say, and that's very disappointing.
To help keep airlines in check, Ottawa says it will introduce tougher air passenger protection regulations in the spring. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Vancouver.
A local organization has thrown down the gauntlet at Regina's elected officials. The goal, making sure city councillors actually understand the reality of how the city's transit system works, or doesn't. Alexander Kwan has more.
For Andrew Reist, every day is a transit challenge. Reist has no driver's license. Instead, he relies on his trusty R card, using it to hop on the bus if he needs to get groceries or visit friends. And 5 days a week, he uses the bus to get to and from work. It's not perfect, but it works for him, at least most of the time.
The service during the week is great. Maybe having it run a little bit later would be nice, but definitely looking at that weekend or Sunday service would be absolutely amazing.
Despite a growing population, reports have found Regina's transit service has failed to keep up with demand. That's one of the reasons the Regina Citizens Public Transit Coalition recently issued a challenge to the city's elected officials. Use the transit system for 48 hours to get an idea of what riding the bus is really like. Ward 1 Councillor Cheryl Stadnichuk is one of the 4 who are taking part.
I think some people think of it as, the people who are poor, who can't afford a car. It's actually a good option to getting around the city if you want to. So we just have to make it as efficient as possible for people.
Stadnichuk says she'll actually take the bus more in the future, that it's a good way to connect with her constituents. But one of those not taking part in the challenge? Mayor Sandra Masters. She says her schedule is blocked out weeks in advance, and she's fully booked.
Because I'm here and I'm there and I'm everywhere, we didn't build the transit system to accommodate kind of back-to-back bookings.
Masters says one of her staff members will be taking part instead. But for organizers of the challenge, the mayor's response is part of the problem. Not everyone has the opportunity to opt out of using the transit system. Reist says that if those in charge don't take the bus, they won't know there are issues.
They're busy most of the time, but I think they should be able to make the time to see the system that they have, that they manage.
The challenge ends on Sunday, and organizers say they'll collect feedback from those who took part. Then it'll be shared with the public. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
Speaking of transit, Regina has received a boost for its plans to eventually make its Regina fleet electric. City officials have confirmed the federal government will provide $26 million through its Zero Emission Transit Fund. The money will help upgrade Regina's maintenance facility and help buy 26 electric buses. City officials say the money will cover half the cost. Regina plans to only purchase buses that are battery powered next year. The plan is to gradually replace all the diesel buses by 2040. And the week has come. The city of Saskatoon is officially rolling out green carts and kitchen pail starter kits. Neighborhoods in the southwest and northeast are up first. About 12,000 bins are expected to be delivered each week between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday. A monthly fee for the program is mandatory, and it will be applied to your city utility bill with an average monthly cost of $6.73. The city expects the green bin program to divert 20,000 tons, or about 3,300 garbage truck loads from the landfill every year. We'll be back after the break.
This weather update is brought to you by Crestview Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, part of the Capital Automotive Group.
Welcome back. Our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. Some rain in the south today, but nothing like what's going on in the north.
Yeah, they are certainly getting hammered with snow up there. It's been very windy through the province as well today. And there are snowfall warnings still in place in that part of the province through the Churchill region from Buffalo Narrows eastward to Pelican Narrows and Sandy Bay, and through kind of the southern half of the far north of the province in an area from La Loche eastward to South End and Reindeer Lake. And we can't really see what's going on there just because we don't have a lot of radar coverage in that part of the province, but you can see those bands of snow starting to taper off a little bit in northwestern Saskatchewan, in that western areas of the warning area. That snow, that rain that we saw in portions of southern Saskatchewan this afternoon has now tapered off, but on the south side of that low pressure system, we're still getting some very strong winds at this hour. Gusts were close to 70 in Regina just a few minutes ago, and it looks like they're in the same vicinity along Highway 16 just northwest of Yorkton. Now, the winds reducing visibility and also causing some issues on roads. And I can tell you right now that the #1 highway between Coupel and Wolseley is closed, and east of Wolseley to about Broadview, travel is not recommended. Highway 10 is also closed between Balgony and Fort Coupel. Travel is not recommended on Highway 11 between Davidson and Saskatoon, and between Kenniston and Hanley there's an accident in the northbound lanes. Travel not recommended between the Alberta border and Delisle on Highway 7. Also an accident at the junction of Highway 44 near Glidden, that's near Etonia, and travel not recommended as well on Highway 20 between Liberty and St. Louis. That is a nearly 220-kilometer stretch of road where we are seeing travel not recommended there. The low-pressure system responsible for this, though, beginning to move out as we head through the overnight hours. Some lingering snowfall in eastern sections of the Churchill region and far north overnight. Tomorrow, a bit of a system moving through the northern plains states, Montana and North Dakota. We will just see cloud cover in the southern portion of the province as a result of that. Some clearing in central regions and a little bit of lingering snowfall in the north. And then come Thursday, some sun and cloud for us and another little system impacting west central Saskatchewan, but not much in the way of accumulation there. Through to about midnight tonight, another 5 to 10 centimeters in portions of the north of the province, and could be another few centimeters as we head to the supper hour tomorrow. So still not quite done with the snow. Winds dying down, though, in eastern Saskatchewan and much of the province actually tonight as we head through the night. They'll pick up a little bit again tomorrow, but they will not nearly be as strong as we saw them today, thankfully. And it looks like a similar picture for Thursday, where highest gusts will only be around 30 to 35 kilometers an hour. For Regina, again, mostly cloudy day tomorrow, and then temperatures cooling down a little bit on the backside of this system, but we will get some clearing skies and some warmer conditions heading into the beginning of next week. We've hit a bit of a milestone here with our normals for this time of year for both Regina and Saskatoon. We're now out of the minuses and, well, should be just above normal for this time of year. But as you can see here, Sam, we are a ways from that and probably will be for the next little while.
I'd like some normal, please.
I'm working on it.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
A flowery stamp with the royal image of Britain's new king has just been released. You have to look closely to even see King Charles III. His silhouette is in the top left corner of each stamp. It's very discreet. The popular British flower stamp is the latest in a long list of planned updates to both stamps and money in honor of the new sovereign. We'll be back after the break. Tragedy continues to ripple through a small town in eastern Quebec. A man is facing 2 counts of dangerous driving causing death, with more charges expected. This after nearly a dozen people were run down yesterday by a pickup truck. Rowan Kennedy has the latest.
The church bells ring out at 3:05, so everyone in this community of 6,000 can hear them. Denis Lacombe's brother-in-law is fighting for his life in a Quebec City hospital. 4 other members of his family were also hit while on an afternoon stroll about town.
J'ai pas vraiment le sourire aujourd'hui. Je suis pas de bonne humeur là. J'ai vraiment un peu de rage au cœur, même beaucoup de rage au cœur.
People are stopping by the Saint-Benoît-Joseph-Labre Church to pay their respects. The bells will be ringing every day this week at the time of the tragedy for the victims, including Gérald Charret and Jean Lafrenière.
It's a drama. Is a man, he decided yesterday, to kill the children.
A 38-year-old man drove into 11 people on Boulevard Saint-Benoît yesterday, including a baby and a toddler. He later turned himself in. Provincial police say the victims were chosen at random. This sergeant says everything leads them to believe it was deliberate. Local politicians say it's a wound that will take a long time to heal from. They say psychological help is available to everyone who needs it.
In Mi'kmaq, the word Mkwi means where people are happy. Since yesterday is where people are crying.
There's resentment, Lacombe says, towards a man he says many people in Amqui knew. Lacombe is trying to put on a brave face as he hopes for a miracle for his brother-in-law. On Friday, members of the community will gather at this church for a vigil in honor of the victims. Rowan Kennedy, CBC News, Amqui.
It is official, the 2025 Grey Cup game will be played in Winnipeg. The CFL made the announcement this morning. The co-chair says planning for the 112th Grey Cup festivities is already underway. It will be in November of 2025 at Investor Group Field. Hotel rooms and venues have already been reserved, and it's been a while for Winnipeg as host city. The last time the big game was in the Manitoba capital was back in 2015. And Ethan is back with one last look at your weather.
And in Regina, as I mentioned, it will be cloudy, Sam, looking at an 8 a.m. temperature of around -13. But look at those nice light winds out of the north, just gusting to 11 kilometers an hour. Big change from today. And as we head toward the noon hour, winds are going to stay light, but we will also stay cloudy. Temperature getting to around -8. We won't get much warmer than that, a little bit below seasonal. Saskatoon, again, I think you're going to see a little more sunshine tomorrow, but colder as we start the morning. But with light winds, we're not going to feel much colder than that. And then heading toward the afternoon, getting to around -10. We'll just crack the minus double digits as we head through the afternoon hours. And with all the snow and rain and what have you, time to take a beautiful look at the sunset happening on Waskesiu Lake. Today, of course, is Pie Day, Sam, so we'll take a nice look at that beautiful pie in the sky.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And before we leave you tonight, an 18-year-old Indigenous woman from Fishing Lake First Nation is making her mark on the fashion world. It started with an Indigenous modeling workshop on her First Nation in East Central Saskatchewan. She was scouted by a Toronto agency at that workshop, and 2 years later, late last month, Heather Diamond Strongarm proudly walked the runways of New York Fashion Week.
I got told that I was walking for Proenza, my first show. I was really surprised. It felt unreal. And I didn't believe that it was true that I was going to walk down a runway. It's really cool. I didn't think that I was going to go to all these cool places like Milan, Paris, LA for different shows. And I only thought that I was going to walk one show this season. But it turns out I ended up walking 13 shows. And it was crazy. I never thought that I'd walk that amount of shows. I also never thought that I'd open a Dior show in my life. I don't know why there's not that much Indigenous people on runways. It's not there needs to be more Indigenous people on runways. I was overwhelmed the first time I ever went to New York because I'm used to quieter, smaller places, and New York is just really big, fast paced, and there's so much people. It just made me anxious, but now I'm used to it. Because I've been to New York 10 times or more. Whenever I'm working, I'm whoa, I'm actually here. And I came from my small reservation, and I never thought that I'd be able to travel all these cool places and meet these cool people. Yeah, so it's really surreal.
And that is it for us tonight. For News Anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/sask or /Saskatoon, or head over to YouTube and subscribe to CBC Saskatchewan's YouTube channel. Glenn, Reed, and Ethan will be back with more local news and weather later tonight at 11. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great night.